Okay, as a request from my 8th grade Algebra 1 students, they wanted a review for their test that is going to be next week for factoring polynomials. So what I've done is I've gone to my website and I put some review questions on for you. And I'm basically just going to take a couple of those problems and work them out completely for you. And obviously, if you have any questions still after you watch this video, never hesitate to catch me during class or before class, and I can show you how to do some more of these problems. So I'm going to pull up some of my review questions here. Let's take a look. I'm going to start with number 1 from our packet. Solve the equation as seen here. All right. Number 1, it says to solve 30x squared plus 11x minus 30 equals 0. Now, make sure you read the directions because when it says to solve, that's different from factoring. You know, it all depends on how they want the answer written. So in this case, they're actually going to want to find the values of x that would work when we plug back into the equation to check so that our equation is equal to 0. All right, so we are going to have to find any values looking at the equation that you can extract or factor out right away. You always want to, I call it hunting, you want to hunt the equation and see if there are any common factors in your 3 terms. So I'm looking at the 30, the 11, and the 30, and I don't see any common factors other than 1, anything bigger than 1 that I can take out. And I don't see any values of x in my c term. My c term is negative 30. So I have my a term 30, I have my b term 11, and my c term negative 30. And again, the only factor that I have is 1, not an x. I do not have an x in my c term right here. So I can't factor anything out to make my problem easier. So I'm just going to set up my 2 binomials, set them equal to 0 because I have to solve. It's very important you know that we are going to be solving these. Okay. The first thing I like to do is I like to look at the signs in the original problem. So I'm looking at the plus 11 and the negative 30 at the end. And I start eliminating some options. So I always tell the kids, can you put the signs in to your binomials as a plus plus? Okay, well, I can see right away that when I am foiling my 2 binomials, I have a plus, and when I multiply them together to get my last term of c, a positive times a positive cannot be a negative. Okay, so I'm going to eliminate those or erase those options. It cannot be a positive positive. All right, maybe it can be consecutive signs of negative negative. Again, I'm going to check that C term and see if it's possible to multiply a negative times a negative to get my C term. Well, we all know that a negative times a negative should be equal to a positive, and it's not the case here. So I am going to eliminate the fact that it cannot be negative negative. So the only option left has to be alternating signs of either positive, negative, or negative, positive. It doesn't matter which order you put them in. It only matters where you put the numbers at the end so that the math makes sense when you're done solving or factoring this problem. So here comes the task of trying to find the factors of your A term and the factors of your C term that will then FOIL together to get your answer. So let's come over to the side and look at your A term and list the factors of 30. And then maybe come over to the right side and look at the factors to get your other 30. Okay, well, I am looking at this problem right now and I'm saying to myself, if I were to set up a bunch of partners that would get me my OI, my O and my I in the FOIL method, what factors could partner up to not only multiply together to get my C term, negative 30, but also product or multiply together to get my middle term. So I will multiply my O outside terms and my I inside terms, and then at the end sum them or add them together to get a positive 11. So a lot of this is guess and check, and the kids sometimes, you can look at these factors on the left over here, and you can look at the factors on the right over here, and you can visualize and see who's actually going to match up together to get this answer. So I'm going to let you pause here and try to figure that out. Okay, I'm just going to start maybe right in the middle. Some kids like to start with the first terms and go 130 and match it up with 130. I happen to know just that 30 and 1 is never going to get me a sum of 11. So I might just start somewhere in the middle with like my 3 and my 10s, or maybe my 5s and my 6s. I'm going to go right maybe to my 5s and my 6s. And that isn't going to work because it looks like I have a 30 here and a 30 here, and 30 and 30 doesn't get me 11. So I'm going to go, instead of 5, 6, 5, 6, I'll go with maybe the partners of 5. Oh, I did that again. Let's go 5, 6, and then 6, 5. All right, how does that work? We have 25 here and 36 here. I know right now that when I have a 36 and a 25 through subtraction or some type of operation, opposite addition or subtraction, I have my value of 11, which is what I need. Okay, so I'm going to eliminate this information here because I didn't need it. And I know that right here, this is what's going to set up my answer. So I don't know how this color is going to show up for you. I'm going to use a yellow here. I know that right here in the top, this has created my first binomial. So I can put in my 5 partnered up with my 6, and don't forget about your variable in the first term. And then in my second binomial, I have my 6 and my other 5, and I put in my x. Now the only thing that I'm really concerned about right here is, did I put my signs with the correct numbers? Do I need to change my addition sign with my subtraction sign and flip them to each side? Well, that's going to be my trial and error. Let's check out the FOIL. First term 5x times the second term 6x is 30x squared, and that checks right here. My last term is positive 6 times negative 5, which does get me my negative 30, or my C term. So that is correct. My biggest concern is always the O and the I, the OI, the outer and the inner. So let's check this out. My outer terms, when I multiply them, it looks like I have negative 25x. Sorry if the colors are bad there. And then in the inner term right here, when I multiply them together, it looks like I have a positive 36x. And when I add those together, I do in fact come up with my b term, which is a positive. Right here, this is a positive 11. So understand that when I put these two numbers together, they have to end up being a positive 11. Now, if it ended up being a negative 11 in this answer, I would have to then switch these two signs to make sure that it foils out and it checks to my original equation. Okay, now that brings us to our next step. Now it says to solve. I have to solve the equation, which means I need to find the answer that is set equal to 0. So I'm going to take my two binomials, 5x plus 6 and 6x minus 5, and set them separately equal to 0. Why don't you pause the video here and try to figure that out. Okay, so I'm going to extract the first binomial out of the parentheses and set it equal to 0. And my second binomial, set it equal to 0. And now I'm going to solve. And hopefully you can do this very quickly here. Okay, so my answers are x is equal to negative 6/5 and 5/6. You do not have to change your answer into a mixed number. As long as you have an improper fraction that is reduced fully, that is an acceptable answer. And let's go ahead and check our website problems and make sure that we got the correct answer of negative 6/5 and 5/6. And here you have it, negative 6/5 and 5/6. Okay. I think the next problem that I have set up for you is number 3. Number 3 on the packet says factor 25x squared minus 15x plus 2. I am now hunting the problem. I am looking at the directions. It says factor. I don't see a 0. I don't see that it says solve. So all I really need to do is figure out if this is a problem that can be factored into two binomials. Are there any factors that are common between my A term, my B term, and my C term? I don't see any factors that are common other than 1. So I am going to set up a couple of sets of parentheses. I'm going to list the factors of 25. And then I'm going to list the factors of 2. All right. I know that I need some type of combination that will multiply together to get my last term of a positive 2, and then somehow get a sum or an OI, I call it in class, an OI of a negative 15. All right, so you can go through the whole game of picking all of the partners, whatever your method is, if you like my X method, or if you like the method from the book where they have a table set up. It really doesn't matter to me as long as we come up with the correct answer. So I'm just going to go ahead and play around with this a little bit. Let's see, a 1 and a 25 and a 1 and a 2. I don't think that will get us some type of 15. So let's just play with the 5s and then the 1 and the 2. And then let's go with the opposite one over here. Now, is that even necessary to do? And the reason I put that up there is if I have a 5 and a 5 and a 1 and a 2, is it necessary to put a 5 and a 5 and a 2 and a 1? No, it is not necessary because the 5s are common. They match up with the 2 and the 1 regardless of the order. So let's just be rid of this silliness right here. And look at our numbers. Our numbers are 10 and a product of 5. And I know that when I put 10 and 5 together, I'm going to get a 15, which is my B term. Okay, so let's look at the signs again. Let's play the sign game. I'll come over here and I'll say, all right, can I have a positive in my binomials? Let's just stay consistent. Let's put it up here. Can I do a positive? Well, I know that over here, my C term, that will work. A positive times a positive is a positive. But when I put them together, I cannot put a positive number with a positive number to get a negative. So that has been eliminated as an option. All right, how about a alternating sign? Let's switch it up a little bit and go either positive, negative, or negative, positive, however you want to put it in there, it doesn't matter. Will that work? Well, I see right off the bat that when you multiply a positive times a negative, I'm not going to get this positive C term here. So that has been eliminated. So the only other option is negative. Okay, so as we stated before, we come over to our method over here and we see that we can put that as a binomial. So I'll match up my 5x with a 1, my 5x with the 2, and let's just double check. We always want to double check our work and make sure that it foils to get our original equation. Okay, so let's go 5x times 5x, our first terms is 25x squared, that checks, good. Our -1 times our -2, that's our last term, that's our L, that gets a +2, that's correct. And now we go with our outer term, which is a -10x, and our inner term, which is a -5x. When I put those together, I should have a -15x, which I do up here in my original problem. So there you go. Our answer should be, at the end, the quantity of 5x minus 1 times the quantity of 5x minus 2. Let's go check that out. That's number 3. Okay. Okay, so it says 5x minus 1 and 5x minus 2. And that's what we had. Very good. All right, now this is a new one. This is a kind of a different problem because I notice here in number 11 that we have an A term that is negative. Okay, so I'm doing my hunting. I'm hunting for any numbers in the coefficients, my A, my B, and my C. My C is not a coefficient, but I'm looking at my A, my B, and my C for common factors. And the only thing that I see here that's common are the signs. Now, what we like to do, and again, like I said, this is brand new to you, in my A term right here, we don't want to play around with this negative A. So we can factor out a negative. Now watch what happens here when you factor out a negative. Okay, see what happens there. So when we factor out a negative, all of the signs of the inside of the parentheses change. All of my terms change to opposite signs. So notice, my negative 6x squared changed to positive, my positive 19x changed to a negative, and my negative 10 changed into a positive. Now that does not change the value of this trinomial. It just makes it look a little different. The value isn't changed, it just looks different. It's now easier to work with when you factor out a negative. All right, so let's go ahead again, like we did in the previous problems. Let's match up or find out our partners to see who the factors are that are going to work to set up our answer. There's our factored out negative. I'm not going to set it equal to 0 because it doesn't say solve. They just want me to factor this. Okay, so we have a 6 in the A term. 1, 6, 2, and 3. And then over here we have a 10, so let's go with 1 and 10, 2 and 5. All right, I am going to roll through just a quick method that I use to get going with these partners. I'm going to go 1, 6, 1, 10, 1, 6, 10, 1. 1, 6, 2, 5 over there from the right, I grabbed it, and 1, 6, 5, 2. So you're just doing the opposite of that term, the terms on the right side there, and you're keeping the 1 and 6 consistent on the left. All right, so I'm just going to quickly eliminate a lot of these possibilities to save some time. So I'm looking here, I got a 10 and a 6, and that's not going to get me 19. I have a 5 and a 12, and that isn't going to get me a 19. A 60 and a 1, that's absolutely silly. We have a 1 and a 2, so that's 2 and 30. Nonsense. So I'm going to just jump right to the point. After you go through all of these different combinations, sometimes, again, you can see it yourself. So I'm going to jump to the combination that works, and it's going to be the 2, 3, and the 5, 2. Let me erase this real quick. All right. So, like I said again, I'm jumping to what I believe to be the setup. This is a 2 and a 3, and this is a 5 and a 2. So we have a product of 4 and a product of 15, and that should get us our 19, and it does. So let's quantify these. We have our 2x and some kind of 5, I don't know yet. We have a 3x and some kind of 2. Let's go ahead and figure out our signs inside here. Ignore the negative that you factored out. We are only working with the signs that are inside of your parentheses, inside your trinomial here. So we need a positive 10 and a negative sum to get us negative 19. So I know, based on the last problem that we did, that the only thing that's going to work here are two negatives. So it should be negative times the quantity of 2x minus 5 times the quantity of 3x minus 2. I should check this. 2x times 3x is 6x squared. That's correct. Negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. That's correct. And my outside term is negative 4x. My inside term is negative 15. I do get negative 19x, so this should be our answer. Let's go check that out in the back here. what number was that? Oops, sorry. That was number 11. Okay, so we have a negative 3x minus 2 and a 2x minus 5. Let's go check that. We have a negative 3x minus 2. And again, it doesn't matter what order these binomials are in because, multiplication is commutative. So we could move those around. A times B is the same as B times A. That's your commutative property of multiplication. Okay, I think I have one more for you. All right, so this looks like a monster kind of problem. It's very intimidating. It says factor completely. Ooh, that's scary. I'm hunting. I'm looking through my A, my B, and my C terms, and I notice that they are all divisible by 5. So I'm going to quickly pull a 5 out of there. You want to take the highest factor that they all have in common, the highest one, the biggest one. Now I'm looking at my m's, and I'm looking for the most m's that they all have in common. Now remember, every term must have an m in it for it to be factored out. If a term doesn't have an m, you can't take any m's out. So I see that they all have an m, and the maximum amount, this guy's got 4, 3, and this one has 2. So I know that there are 2 in all of them, so I'm going to take that out. All right, well, if I were to distribute back into my parentheses, what would get me my 5m to the 4th? Well, I have 5m squared, so 1m squared, I don't need the 1 here, but you can put it if you want. 1m squared times 5m squared is 5m to the 4th. Then I have minus what? Well, I hope you can divide 70 by 5. I hope you don't need a calculator for that, but I happen to know that that is going to be a 14. 14 what gets me m to the 3rd? Well, m to the squared times m to the 1st gets me my m to the 3rd. Okay, last term. What's going to get me 245 m squared? Maybe, you work off to the side of your paper here, and, you divide 245 by 5, and it comes out to be a 49, and it's going to be positive 49. All right, it says factor completely. You have to be aware of this. Do not leave your answer in this form, because I can actually factor out the squared trinomial that you see in the parentheses. So there's one more step to this. This is going to factor again. Okay, we are going to play the old find my partner game. So I list the factors of, now I'm looking in the parentheses, the 5 is factored out, so don't look at it anymore. The factors of my A term, which is 1, so I have a 1 and a 1, that's very nice of them, very easy to work with ones. And then I have a 49 over here, so I'm going to look at the factors of 49. And I think those are pretty much the only ones I'm going to have to worry about, because I know right away that a 7 and a 7, and you're going to get better at this as you work with these problems, that a 7 and another 7 is going to get me a 14. So again, if you want to set up your x's, you could go 1 and 1, and you could go 7 and 7, and there you have your 2 binomials. Okay, well, I have a 1 and an m, so I'm just going to put a 1m, which is looking like this, and it's going to match up with a 7. I don't know what kind of sign yet. I'll leave that to the end. You could do it at the beginning, whatever you feel more comfortable with. And then I'm going to have the bottom binomial as another m and some kind of 7. All right, let's get this out of here now that we know that that's going to work for us. Okay, let's look at our signs. All right, again, we've been practicing this. We have a positive c I know that a positive and a positive won't work because that won't add up to get me a negative in any world. So what I'm going to have to do again is go with my negative, negative. Now they're not alternating either. I can't go positive, negative because I'm not going to get my C term. That won't get me a positive answer when I multiply these two together. Okay, so it doesn't ask me to solve. I don't have to set them equal to 0, but I can clean up my answer a little bit. It looks like I have two m minus 7s. So I like to write it like this at the end. Just looks a little shortened and cleaner. 5m squared times the quantity of m minus 7, and we did that 2 times. All right, so that's number 21. Let's go check out our answer key. Number 21, and that's right here. And it checks. 5m squared times the quantity of m minus 7 squared. Okay, so that's all of the problems that I have for you today. I worked out a couple of different types of problems for you. This is the review for your test that's coming up. If you're looking at my website and you're practicing some different problems that are on there and you're having trouble, come and ask me during class and I can show you how to do those. So, have a good day.